It's the podcast where the topics are related to wrestling and the three of us are related to each other. I'm Josh.
No, I'm Dustin.
And Corey.
And you guys are catching this one just a little early this week because Dustin and I are out of town, as you might be able to notice if you're watching the video podcast. Dustin looks to be in a hotel room with some intriguing artwork in the back. Yeah, I'm getting ready to head to Minnesota for the week for a ministry conference. So we figured we would record this a little bit early, give some of our thoughts on the big PLE that happened in Scotland, Clash at the Castle, as well as last Wednesday, my happy self wound up attending my first AEW event live. And I'll kick it off here, guys, because I have to. It was a blast. I can't remember ever having that much fun at a wrestling show. Part of it was me going into it and thinking, you know what? Wrestling is cool. Wrestling is fun. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy it as much as possible. So I went in with that. And I'm like, I'm just going to mark it up because why not? I didn't want to get into WWE and AEW tribalism or any of that. I just wanted to go in and enjoy a show as a fan. And that's exactly what wound up happening. It was a blast.
And that kind of brings me into the one thing that I noticed. I was watching it. I saw you and the rest of the gang that you were there with up there. And especially when they ended up battling in front of you, you guys looked like you were having a blast. I mean, it looked like you were, your facial expressions. Yeah, there you are, mouth wide open when MJF's about to get punched by Roosh. And everybody was just, you played up the entertaining fan aspect of the whole event. Yeah. In fact, one of the twins ended up asking me, they're like, why is Uncle Josh's face look like that? And I said, well, if you think about it, sometimes wrestling events and wrestling companies, they will turn around and have plants. They will have people they'll put in the audience because they're good fans. Yeah. You know, I think the one that comes to mind is the green shirt guy in the WWE. He's always in there. But, you know, I said, I don't know, maybe, you know, this was the first event in Des Moines, Iowa for AEW, and they were wanting to make sure that it was good television. They were wanting to make sure they were having fun while watching it live, and they wanted Tony Khan to bring back AEW to Des Moines, Iowa. And I think the whole crowd was all into it, and I think everybody did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a blast. Hey, if you guys want an interesting thread to read and you want some hilarious commentary, you can go over onto X, formerly known as Twitter. MJF actually posted that. I wound up tagging him in it. He took the photo, posted it on his own page with a caption, "I can smell this photo." And the comments throughout there of people, it's absolutely hilarious. They just... I mean, I'm sure the majority of them are 13-year-olds in their mom's basement, just trying to insult somebody left and right. But it was funny. Like, I got a kick out of it. I think one of them said, "Does it smell like bacon grease?" And I was like, "That's maybe."
I was gonna say that's only if I was in attendance. It smells like bacon grease.
I thought it had a reference to do with the Bacon Fest in Des Moines.
Oh, that
right.
Could have been. I forgot all about that. Can you believe I've still never been to that thing?
Yeah, same.
I was just going to ask you if either one of you have been.
No. Now, I did watch it late that night after the kids hit the sack. And as I was watching, somebody had sent a spoiler to the Instagram thread. So I knew something was going down. And so then when Roosh is out there and the music hit, they did a zoom in on Roosh's expression, and right over his shoulder is Josh's expression.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah. Watch it again. I had to rewind and watch it like 3 times. Eyes went big. it was well worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I had a friend on Facebook that said I went full YouTuber thumbnail expression. I was like,
Yep.
you're not entirely wrong.
Isn't that what it's
I don't
about?
know. I
Though?
kind of prefer Jason's.
Jason's was hilarious, and I was talking to Jason about that today at church, and he winds up telling me that he had been looking over at Justin and I and how much we were playing it up, and he's like, these guys are having so much fun, I've got to do it too. So it was it was a blast. One thing that
I know Jason, he wasn't playing up. That was legit.
Yeah,
That was him having a blast.
It was so much fun. One thing that Genevieve had mentioned was that she's like, the commercial breaks went by so quick. And it was something I had wondered about with, AEW does a lot of the picture-in-picture commercial breaks. When you're in the crowd live, you have no idea they're going to picture-in-picture. Like, none whatsoever. So the only time they even mention commercial break is when they do the full commercial breaks. And those, they went really smooth. I got to give credit to Justin Roberts, the ring announcer. He kept everybody engaged. He would immediately stand up, mention that we were going to commercial break. And then he basically spent all commercial break pointing out signs that different people had, or constantly giving praise to the ring crew that was there. And we learned that the head of their ring crew, his name's Bob. And so there were lots of Bob chants going on. And that ring crew, they did a fantastic job, especially you guys watched that first match with Dustin Rhodes and the bloodbath that he had. That,
Yep.
they did a great job cleaning that up. As soon as it went to commercial break, there's a dozen of them running out there. They're out there with mop and bucket on the outside, and then towels to dry everything up. And then a neat thing they did, for us that have been in the business and set up hundreds of rings, they had a canvas, a full plastic sheet, and then another canvas underneath it. So that top one, they just rolled it up and slid it out, and then they didn't have to put a new canvas on. It went so quick.
Smart.
And I'm like, duh.
Smart.
Why would I have never... I never would have thought of that. And it was just brilliant.
Now, we were at one venue. I can't remember who it was. And I don't remember. I don't think I was on the card, but one of you was. And I want to say it might have been one of the Missouri shows. But they had 3 different canvases laid down, one on top of the other, on top of the other. And I kind of scratched my head for a little bit, but then someone had said, well, it's just in case anyone gets color. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I had never thought of it. I thought
it just escaped my mind until you brought that up.
And I thought the neatest thing was having that full layer of plastic in between them.
Yeah.
Because then nothing's going to transfer through. But I had always kind of wondered, especially with AEW, is the amount of times they have somebody bleeding nowadays, and they'll wind up early on the card. I'm thinking, if you knew you were going to get that much color, wait until later in the show. But they do it. They come back out after commercial, and it's a clean canvas. And I'm like, how are they so fast? Well, that's how.
So my question for you, Josh, is I know on a lot of AEW shows, they always have some of the wrestlers stick around at the end, or Tony Khan himself comes out and addresses the audience and talks to you guys. Did that happen at the live event that you were at as well?
It did, yeah. Tony was the one that stuck around. He came out afterwards. He came out after Collision, had a little break, or not Collision, after Dynamite. There was a little bit of a break before they recorded for Rampage. And, he just came out, thanked everybody for being there. He said, I don't know exactly what's going to happen as far as us in the future, being here, but you guys have been a great crowd. I want you to continue in, keep it up, and, keep the energy up. You're going to be on TV again on Friday. Talking a little bit about coming in there, him being from Chicago, getting a bunch of boos because he's from Illinois and not Iowa. But yeah, really interacting with the audience. And then even before Rampage was done with their recording, and they record live to tape, so they treated it just like it was live and recorded straight through. So if they do any editing after, it's got to be very minimal editing. And then even in the middle of that show, I think on a commercial break, he came out and it was early on. And he's like, okay, just so you know, you guys are great. We're definitely coming back to Des Moines. He's like, this is too much fun. It was like, well, good. But yeah, he
And how
came
full
out.
was the arena?
The arena was not full. I would say quarter or a third, maybe. So it was a low attendance. And yet I was surprised at how low the attendance was, and yet how hot the crowd stayed. And I can only attribute that, I mean, partially to those fans, but part of it, I think, is just the pacing of that show. Like the pacing, the speed, the way they were going in and out of segments. It was just constant action. Like, you know, we've done a ton of shows, and like, especially indie shows, they've always got this intermission. And it's like you get the intermission and you kill any momentum that the crowd has. There was nothing. Now, I almost wonder, like, if I was at a pay-per-view, I don't know how I could handle that. You know, when you got 14 matches on it, and you're looking at like a 6-hour show, because we had 4 hours. And at the end of 4 hours, I'm like, I got every dollar's worth out of that show. It was that much fun. Anything longer than that, I'm sure it would be fatigue, because if that's the kind of pacing they keep, yeah, it goes.
I can't imagine it being too much of an issue as far as what you considered to be a low attendance. I don't remember which one of you went with me to the Nitro taping that they had back in the day, but even that was maybe a 50 to 70.
Maybe.
They still, yeah, and keeping in mind that they still shut down one side for the hard cam because they want to get everybody moving up there. I did see that Tony Khan did come out at some point because of Austin Bayless. We all know Bayless. He had posted quite a few pictures, and apparently they had gotten tickets last minute. Wound up getting, what was it, something like second row, or they got bumped up to second row because their seats couldn't be found or something like that. So the tickets that they bought were for certain seats. The seats couldn't be found because the way that the arena got structured, so then they bumped them up to second row. But then for a while they actually got front row on the hard cam side because people hadn't been there yet, and then they left early for some reason.
Yeah.
So then they wound up getting that kind of treatment. So
they did have,
they do stuff like that.
They did have some comp tickets. Like I actually picked up a comp ticket because I had to go to the bathroom. You know, my hamster bladder. And when I went to the bathroom, 2 guys they brought from out back, and they sat down in the seat because I was taking up kind of like 2 seats. Jason and I were occupying 3 seats. So these 2 guys came in and sat there while I was gone. And they had let us know ahead of time, hey, just everybody in this area, you're on TV. You'll be on TV the entire time. If you get up and you leave, we're going to have somebody fill your seat until you get back because we don't want empty seats on this side. And it was good to know that, just that they're like, hey, we've got people to fill in. So that was kind of cool. And it was a nice little souvenir because they got up and left and dropped the ticket. And I was like, ooh, souvenir.
Keep them warm.
Exactly.
Keep a seat warm.
Yeah, and I asked Jen when I was gone, and she said, yeah, they were acting just like us and just as excited and energetic. So they were definitely plants. I was not a plant.
I did notice that they are coming to Greenville, South Carolina here in the end of next month, and I thought about going up there, but unfortunately that weekend we have some other events that are wrapping us up for that weekend. So I have a young lady that's been on me because I've taken both my older boys to the wrestling events. In fact, last year, Father's Day, by the way, happy Father's Day to both of you.
Happy Father's Day.
Am I froze up?
And to you guys.
Looks like I'm froze up. There I am.
You're good.
Last year on Father's Day, my oldest boys ended up buying me tickets to a WWE event up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I took them, and now my wonderful athletic volleyball daughter is like, Dad, I'm old enough now. take me to a wrestling event. And I'm like, all right. So I'm trying to find the right one to take her to. But yeah, it's just got to work into a schedule. And right now it's getting kind of challenging.
Well, as far as AEW, you being down there in South Carolina, they do a lot down there in Florida, Georgia, Carolina. So I imagine you're going to have plenty of opportunities.
Yep.
I just hope I don't have to wait 5 more years. But if so, I will wait patiently.
Well, I'm pretty sure that 5 years, there were some other circumstances that were in that works that we'll leave alone for now.
I'm sure. And Tony Khan did mention that Iowa was one of them that he's been wanting to come to for quite a while, and they just weren't able to make it work. And somebody, I don't know if it was on a thread or maybe it was on X or something I read, that had been to both shows in Iowa. There was Cedar Rapids last weekend. They had a collision there. And then Des Moines. Or not Cedar Rapids, Cedar Council Bluffs. And they said that the crowd in Council Bluffs was not nearly as hot as the one in Des Moines. And I don't know why, but being part of the crowd in Des Moines, I was happy to hear that. So at least from a fan's standpoint.
And knowing Austin Bayless, he was at both. So I don't know why it wasn't as hot, because, Austin goes to a lot of them.
He does. So, okay.
We lost Dustin momentarily.
We lost Dustin.
He'll be back in a moment. Continue on about the show so that we don't skip topics on him.
Right. Dustin and I had actually mentioned off camera, he was catching a little bit of Rampage, and on his phone, Satnam Singh came out, and he said, okay, is this guy really that big? Yes. That dude is a monster. He come walking out and got in the ring, and I mean, we're still quite a ways away. It was insane how large that man is. And they need to let that guy do a choke slam. I'm telling you, just let him do a choke slam. Call it the 10-footer or something like that, because if he gives somebody a choke slam, they are up 10 foot in the air. Like, he's just a monster.
I was thinking about why they don't, because a lot of the other guys, Taker did it, Kane did it, Big Show did it, all these guys have done it. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem is when you turn around and get a guy that's a little heavier, you have to assist and you have to post. But if his arm is fully extended,
they can't post.
The other guy's arm's not going to be able to post off of his shoulder, right? Because it's too short.
Yeah.
So he'll be like, what was Malachi Black's daughter or wife, not daughter,
Zelina.
Malachi Black's wife in when Braun Strowman grabbed her and lifted her off her toes. That was hilarious, by the way.
Yeah. So Corey doing the when I saw him, because at first he grabs him with like
forever
a double choke. And when he started to lift up, I was like, yes, do a double choke slam. I mean, full goozle up and then down. If they did that, that would be easier to, grab the wrist to help post jump a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, that guy is huge. And Mercedes Moné is tiny. I think Genevieve is much bigger than her. Like, I'm looking at Mercedes in the ring and I'm thinking, she is a toothpick. Like, I mean, she looks thin on screen. Like, we're watching it on TV. Oh, she looks so much smaller in person. She looks very petite. Like, if they said that she was 100 pounds, I'm questioning it.
Soaking wet, carrying a six-pack?
Yeah. Only other thing that really stood out for me from that event, Ospreay versus Phoenix, was everything that I hoped it would be. Great match. And in person, Ospreay goes for his running Spanish fly. And as I see him, he gets hung up upside down, and Phoenix is kind of in a weird position. And the next thing I know, he picks him up, and Ospreay's now got Phoenix up in an air raid crash. but then he rotates him around into almost like a Michinoku driver, like when he hits.
Yeah, it was a little odd.
It looked so odd, and in person I was like, oh no, and then he recovers and I was like, wait a second, what was that? And I was like, did I see a botch, or did I see a recovery, or what was it? And it wasn't until afterwards
Recovery.
that it looks like it was a recovery. I mean, when I went back and I watched it, it looks like Phoenix just didn't get his arm over. And because his arm didn't get over, Ospreay got hung up. And then Ospreay's like dangling, and once he touches the foot, he's just like, well, I'm just hoisting you up. And I guess he invented a new move.
Right. 2 points about this. One, this is a match that I've been waiting for from Ospreay. This one, I loved it. It was great. But two, a big part of that is Ray Fenix. The stuff that he did. I mean, the Lucha Brothers, they're talking about one's contract coming up and who's going to be left. Yeah, Fenix has got no worries whatsoever about
Nothing
whether or not he's going to get ring time. I mean, because that guy can go.
Yeah.
And you look at him and you're like, ooh, he kind of little, but he's just not the biggest, but he can do things that even the little guys can't do.
Right.
I mean, he's just he does stuff that just blows my mind.
That super hurricane run off the top, when I saw that, and then Ospreay landed on his feet, I'm like, oh. And then all of a sudden, Ray Phoenix lands on his feet off of the next move, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is good. This is good.
Yeah.
Keep going. It was equal. They're both amazing wrestlers.
Yep.
Much
countering
respect.
the counters.
Countering the counters. Yeah. No, it was so good. Like, it was it was actually kind of evenly matched, even though Ospreay's winning. At the same time, there was a couple moments there that the crowd popped because we thought it was actually a 3 and that Ospreay just lost because of the build that they had, and then Phoenix is able to hit a move, and it just we're sold out on it. It was fantastic. I loved the match.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, good.
Hot crowd, good card. It was fun. So much fun.
Cool.
And shall we move to predictions or result of predictions?
Where's my crown at? I
was going to say, does anybody remember what anybody voted for or whatnot?
Well, I keep them down. I keep them down in an Excel spreadsheet. Dustin missed 2. Corey missed 2. I missed 1. So I wound up picking that up. Right out the bait.
High five, Corey. High five. There we go. We got it. Good job.
So
pick the side.
The women's tag match. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark. I'll give my overall impression.
Somebody was winning. I'm okay it wasn't me, but as long as it wasn't Josh.
Yes. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I didn't see it happening until after, I'm sitting there, I think, Friday night watching SmackDown, and then I kind of thought back over my predictions, and I was like, wait a second. I didn't have any champion losing. And I was like, somebody's got to lose. And then I was like, oh, well, Dustin's going to pick up this point. So that was like a Friday night. It was like, that's going to happen. I think it was Dave Meltzer had right afterwards on X. He said, hey, give me your overall thoughts. I said my overall thoughts of the PLE was hacksaw. All in all, I thought it was a hacksaw moment. I wouldn't give any of those matches a Batista.
Except?
None of them. I would give none of them a Batista. It was a very mild Orange Cassidy for the women's tag, and Bayley versus Piper was also an Orange Cassidy. But the 2 heavyweight matches, like, they both got big hacksaws out of me. And so did, the IC belt. Like, that match got a hacksaw. So at that point, I'm like, yeah, the overall show, I enjoyed it. I didn't snooze off during the women's tag. It was better than I expected.
So I thought the women's tag was really good. I thought as far as when I say really good, I mean compared to any other singles tag, whatever, that my favorite, non-favorite wrestler has been in, this was her best performance, and she still screwed up. But anyway, with that being said, I thought the way the match flowed, I thought it was very, very good. It flowed very well. I thought Baszler and Starks and the new champs did a great job. Bianca Belair was solid. You could still tell.
Hotel internet connection. Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah, hotel internet connection, not much. Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Oh, that was like...
I'm about to throw this into the garbage.
I'm blaming it on the hotel internet.
It might be the hotel internet, yeah, because it's shoddy.
Anyways,
I will say that I was saying you can still tell watching that match, though, Jade Cargill is still super green and needs a lot more experience, especially going into a main event tag team title match or any type of single championship match. She needs more experience.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Agreed.
My turn.
Now, did I giggle my butt off when she top ropes, slingshot, jumping, fall, inverted reverse brainbuster, self-inflicted
herself
was funny? Yeah, I giggled my butt off. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Can we at least give her credit for trying to recover? Like, land, roll up, and immediately go into it.
No. Because she followed up. She followed up, and like the very next time she threw a kick, and that kick, so pitiful. She went to kick somebody, and it was just like she even missed the person.
I think she grazed and slipped and fell, but she was also holding.
Yeah.
Well, right. So I saw that was the match coming up, and I fast forwarded the last 5 minutes of it because I loathe that so desperately much. And the last 5 minutes merely proved my point. I saved myself 25 minutes of misery. However, hats off to the rest of the girls. But yeah, Dustin's point is 100%, 150% accurate. Somebody, regardless of how they look, regardless of what name they have, regardless of what fan base they bring in and how many Twitter followers or Instagram followers they have, has no business whatsoever in a title match on a PLE. If they cannot execute the job correctly. When you have to put 5 other females in as a buffer and still your goof ups overshadow the new champs even the commentators couldn't stop but commenting on the slip and fall. Couldn't help but go when she was holding somebody to try and kick somebody to fall down and not even be able to execute her own tag team finisher. And when they're still like, what was that? Well, I don't know what we just saw there. And it's like,
yeah.
What, Dustin, what did you constantly tell people when they when you were cutting hair and they came into the shop talking about how everything they wanted and can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear or something to that effect.
Yep. Can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and I can't polish a turd. So,
what did you guys think about Bayley versus Piper Niven?
It like I expected it to end. I expected Bayley. We all expected Bayley to win. I'll be honest with you. I was thumbing through Instagram and Facebook and all that other stuff earlier today, or no, what was it? Yesterday. And all of a sudden I see this picture, and this picture it said Clash of the Castle, and it showed Drew with the title belt, and it showed Piper with the title belt. And I'm like, oh no, did I just lose the Bayley match? And then I watched it, and I'm like, okay, good. Because that ended like I expected.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was lackluster. It seemed like an afterthought. It was like, okay, we're filling up time. Tell us when we need to do a roll up.
Yeah. Hey, the most devastating move in the wrestling business.
Yeah, it's won more titles than any of them.
Yeah. My thoughts on it, it was hard for me to keep my attention to that. It was easier to keep my attention for the women's tag match than that one.
It's like a car crash, though.
Yeah, I thought that the Bayley and Piper Niven did a better job. However, I think that both of them were overshadowed by Chelsea Green. And Chelsterio Jr. I don't know if there is anybody, male or female, in the wrestling business that makes more out of their minutes than she does. Like, you give her 1 minute, she's making the most out of that 1 minute. I don't know if anybody can make more out of a minute than she can.
She understands that every single 10-second, 20-second, 30 seconds that you're given is an opportunity. Every single time that camera's on you is an opportunity. She gets it. And too many of them just kind of, they're okay with being, I don't know, background. And she's like, also, I'm going to be in the background. Check this out.
Yeah.
And she also, like we've said before on previous episodes of this podcast, she's made comments on the Chris Van Vliet show. She understands it doesn't matter how many championships really you have. It doesn't matter if you're in a championship match. It matters if you're over with the crowd. It matters if you're getting the cheers or the boos or whatever. That's what matters, because that's what's going to get you on the card. That's what's going to get you on the PLEs, the paid per views, even doing the house shows. That's what's going to get you over.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to give credit where credit's due, because the making the most out of the minutes, I didn't even think about that. It was actually Simon Miller on one of his latest up and downs. He gave her a new nickname. He says her new nickname for me is the Maximizer of Minutes, because nobody gets more out of their TV time. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. Simon Miller came up with it, and he's spot on.
Spot on.
Yeah. All right.
But I mean, to that point that you were making.
Yeah.
Real quick, to that point you were making. I mean, we all know, everybody who doesn't even watch wrestling has heard of Jake the Snake Roberts. Mm-hmm. How many titles has he held?
I don't know.
Right. And who cares? Who cares?
Right. He could draw.
I mean, yeah. And what's the best comedic gimmick that you guys can think of?
Santino Marella.
Right. And the only title that I can remember him ever having is the one that he had when he first debuted. And and you even forgot about it. So
yeah, I even forgot about that. I was thinking maybe the hardcore title, but everybody had that.
Santino had a belt. Yeah, who cares?
Right.
That guy's a riot.
Yeah.
So,
Nope.
anyways, go.
That's good. IC belt.
Moving on.
Chad Gable, Sami Zayn. What did y'all think?
You knew it was going to be good.
Yep.
Give Maxine credit for taking that chop block in the back of the knee, man. She took it like a champ.
She took it.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I wasn't sure how they were going to finish that off. Like, I think we talked about on the predictions, that was the one that was the hardest for me to predict because it was so close. It could have went either way. And even looking at how they could potentially book it, 1, 2, 3, 6 months down the road, I could see it going either way. And I didn't know how they were going to do the finish, especially you knew that Chad Gable was going to be out there, or not Chad Gable, but Otis was going to be out there. And how was that going to play in? I thought it played very well, and it's going to do what Triple H likes with the long-term storytelling. Because I think it was the best solution for them to draw this out without having to wrap up the IC belt in it. Because a Chad Gable Otis storyline does not need any belt. Like, there's already enough emotional investment in it that it would... I mean, to me, it's like Sami Zayn needs the belt more than either of those guys do. Even though I think Gable might deserve it a little more.
So do you think the direction they might be going, though, down the road? I know you talked about the Creed brothers, and you both have made that comment about, Gable bringing them in. Do you think they're eventually going to split everything up, and it's going to end up being Otis and what's the guy's name? Tozawa. With Maxine against Kazawa with the Creed brothers and Gable on the other side? Do you think it's eventually going to get to that?
It could be. Yeah. I could kind of see it going that way. I'm still not quite sure. Like, that's the hard thing. I would almost think what they could do is have Chad Gable bring in the Creed brothers while you've still got Tozawa and Otis there, and then show them, hey, I'm bringing in these new guys because you guys have been slacking off, and then keep bringing them out, and hey, they're doing the job that you couldn't do, type of a deal. I don't know.
Well, I think that could be an option. I think the beauty of this particular angle is that there are so many options.
For sure.
You can go anywhere with it in any length. If Triple H wanted to cut this off in a week and have this done,
easy, because
of contracts and whatnot, done.
Yeah.
If he wanted to drag it out another 6 months,
easy,
done. I mean, this is like textbook easy booking for him. I mean, he can go
right
any direction. But to Josh's point, yeah, I don't think that the IC belt really is a determining factor in this one, because I mean, you can play this out either way without it. I really don't like the idea of that, the bringing the Creed brothers in and then having a big split up. I think it's going the path of a split up first, but they're kind of just planting the seeds to be able to do that. And Creed brothers become the new Alpha Academy, and then they have the Sammy Academy doing something else, or whatever the heck they want to call it, Otis's crew, or
right.
He can bring in one more person to or just bring Sammy in to have the 6-man tags against Gable and the Creed brothers.
Right. Yep.
I mean, they got so many options, so many different weeks of shows, so many pay-per-views that they can run through on this.
Correct.
This is great.
Yeah, and especially the way they've been slow building a lot of these feuds where they don't have to be on every pay-per-view. When they're only doing 5 matches per pay-per-view or PLE, man, I mean, you go to 1 every 3 and you're good to go. So that makes it so much easier to drag these storylines out. When you're only building on the storyline 1 week at a time, I mean, yeah, it can last, 3-6 months easy.
So. Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
I like it.
So I think, in my opinion, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles was the match of the night. I think it was the best overall match. And I, of all people, hated that finish. And I say I, of all people, because I think one of the greatest finishes I've ever had in a tag match was smacking a crotch on the top rope and tapping out. I like when something has not been done and it's outside of the box, but yet I hated that finish of that.
They could have done a lot of other things to finish that off. I mean, I will say I did like the fact that he said I quit. He's getting ready to hit him with the stairs. But then after it was all ended, he still hit him with the stairs anyway. And I mean, it was almost kind of like, okay, why? So that was a little bit of an evil shot. Are they potentially maybe doing some type of a bad guy swerve eventually on Cody? Or are they just, what are they doing with this? It just doesn't make sense to me. Are they trying to drag it out a little bit more? I don't know.
It was out of character.
Out of character, perhaps. I think also when we do this, try to do the predictions and kind of play armchair quarterback, it really gives too much fuel for us to read too much into it.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm trying to look at it of just, hey, it was at that point in time that he's checking with his mother. Are you okay? And she's like, I'm good. And then he's like, okay. And then that's when he hits him. So I don't know. Yeah, agreed that the ending was a little bit lackluster. Could have been so many different things. And was I the only one through the entire match going, well, if you really want to make him quit, you do this and this and this and this and this and
Right.
this and this and this. And none of it requires blood, and none of it requires a barbed wire ball bat to the ball sack. So
I was thinking a pair of pliers and some fingernails.
I mean, yeah,
or a tooth.
It's especially, and that was all my thinking before you break out handcuffs. I'm like, which, by the way, I did not. There was something funny going on with the camera angles where I was not catching when Cody got they're not handcuffs, they're shackles.
Yeah,
because
from
handcuffs
behind to
do
front.
not let you go this far. So for him to go from behind to front, pull his feet through, but then he wound up getting the key, and I was like, wait, hang on, I missed something. I looked away for like 2 seconds and I missed what was going on. So that I then saw it, I'm like, okay, that makes way more sense. I'm following now.
Yep.
But the fact that I had to do that was, I don't know, off, because I didn't even hear the announcers talking about it. But that was me.
I did pop when his mom started slapping AJ Styles. Like the first one was like a little paintbrush, and then she hit another one, and then hit another one, and I was like, okay, that was fun.
It's like, I think the third one kind of caught him. I don't want to.
I think the third one caught him, because after the third one, he turns around and he goes, I'm getting in the ring. Just jumps right on in there.
Well, maybe the first one was just a matter of, well, I don't want to hurt him. Oh, he can take it. And then she really lays it in and goes, oh, well, let's do this. I'm not going to hurt him.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience way back when, some of the hardest hits I've ever had been from the females. You know, I still remember that one with me, Horace the Psychopath, and Rain was out there. And as I'm bringing her in, you know, she asked me ahead of time. She goes, yep. And she asked me ahead of time, how do you want me to swing? Do you want me to just, you know, gut shots, or what do you want? And I'm like, what are you? You're like, what, 105, 110 pounds? And she kind of gave me this nasty look. She goes, what do you want? And I'm like, just swing. Oh, I made the mistake. I bent my arm. I brought her through the ropes, and she uppercutted me, and I saw Tweety Bird. I'm like, ow, you know. She nailed me good. And then even Vixen, man, she paintbrushed me several times before I put her in that full Nelson slam a couple of times. Man, she hit me hard too. Those girls can hit.
Love Vixen. Oh, sweetheart.
Yep.
Shout out to
Such a
Renegade.
sweetheart. Yeah, such a sweetheart. But man, if you took it easy on her, you would regret it.
Yep.
She's like, mm-mm.
The big switch around, because obviously Corey and I both lost the point when it came to the women's tag. Dustin lost the point when it came to Chad Gable. Where I wound up winning it was the main event. I picked Damien Priest. You guys went with Drew McIntyre.
I told you I picked this entire PLE based on what I wanted, not what I thought was happening.
And I will say, honestly, I thought it was going to end quicker than what it did when Damien Priest slipped off that top rope and got his ankle caught in between those ropes. I instantly had Dante Martin vision in my head, and I'm like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
I thought this, they're gonna have to call this match, and they're gonna have to put it on Drew, instantly because of that. But he recovered. I think he still he had to have hurt his ankle because them ropes are tight as can be. And
I have no idea. I know I caught a clip of Triple H from the post interview, post show conference, whatever it was. And he said he's walking around. He says he's fine. He's acting fine. But all of us know what adrenaline does. And we will see. Because you can do a whole lot when the adrenaline is pumping through your body. He's like, but as of right now, everything looks okay. For now. We'll wait and see.
I was scared.
Yeah, and here's where I got to say, yes. Jade Cargill hits the top rope, tries a springboard, botches. Damien Priest tries a springboard flip, botches. I loved how Damien just kind of rolled with that. I mean, one, he's caught and he's hooked, and you're in that. Take a moment, realize, am I safe? If I'm safe, hit me, beat on me. Then we'll figure out how to get out of it. But capitalize on this mistake and turn the botch into something.
Yes.
And he did something that is missing in a lot of matches. And that is, I know, Corey, you and I have talked about it a lot, over the course of the years. And that is the fact that in the olden days, you work an arm, you work a leg, you work a back, and then all of a sudden, 2 moves later, your leg's fine. Your arm's fine. And it's like, that makes no sense. That logic is faulty. But yet Damien Priest, he hurt his ankle, and whether it was legitimately hurt or whether, he realized I'm fine, but this could have been very serious. He continued to play the fact that ankle was hurt throughout the entire match. And kudos to the psychology behind a wrestling match to Damien Priest.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, if he worked the rest of that match on an injured leg and he felt it the whole time, hats off to him. But if he worked that whole match with his leg feeling fine and yet sold it like it was hurt, even better. Like, that performance, that deserves a standing ovation because he continues to sell the entire time. And it was a great performance. I loved that.
And I will say one of the sells that he did that I popped for the sell, and that was when he did the roundhouse kick to Drew with the foot. And as soon as he did, you see him wincing in pain. You see him coming back and limping on that leg. And that made sense. You know, this is the foot you got caught, and now you just kick somebody with it. It's going to hurt.
Yep.
You're gonna, if it's legit, it's gonna hurt. And he did a great job.
Yeah.
And hopefully he's all good. But either way, we're going on the assumption that something went wonky, and he may be feeling it today. And if he's gonna feel it, it's gonna be today and tomorrow.
Yeah. I
So
did notice when it came to the
they'll
top
know by
ropes.
Showtime tomorrow night.
Yeah, for sure. I did notice when it come to the top rope, middle rope botches that were happening, the WWE stands that are out there were in huge defense of Damien and Jade in saying that this is just because of the ropes, and the only reason you don't see any of these type of botches on AEW is because they use steel cables versus rope, and ropes are springier. And I will sit there and say, shenanigans.
Absolutely.
Yes, there are two different ones. You've got rope and you've got steel cables, and yes, they're
Right.
obviously different. But I don't see AJ Styles botching like that as often. Why?
No.
Because AJ is just that good. I'm not saying that Damien Priest is bad. I'm not saying that Jade Cargill is good. What I am saying is that every single time you go off the top, you have a big foot on a small rope, whether it is pure rope, whether it's a bull rope, or whether it is a steel cable wrapped in like gasoline hose or whatever. You've got big on a small surface area with momentum, and there is a big, massive room for error. And what we just saw was those two hitting that massive room for error, where you see somebody like an AJ Styles and he just hits the bullseye over and over and over again. But if you go back to AJ early TNA stuff, there were a lot of botches. There were a lot of those springboards that he missed. He's practiced. He's gotten better over the years. Now he's got it down to a science.
You're taking into consideration, you're comparing a lot of the AEW guys and gals that do a lot of rope work, a lot of springboards, a lot of stuff. You have an Osprey and a Ray Phoenix that we were talking about earlier, that you take the ropes out of the match, it's a completely different match.
Correct.
You take the ropes out of the match with a Damien Priest, and you're not going to have as big of a difference.
Right.
A Jade Cargill, while she is super athletic,
she doesn't need
doing
the
things without the ropes. She's having difficulty with the consistency, which is a bigger factor here. And then, I mean, cable ropes. WCW did cable ropes, and anybody can hop on YouTube and watch a Hoovy highlight reel of how many times that guy nearly ended his own career.
Or even recently, look at AEW and search up the Vikingo matches. And it's like every third match, you would see him slip or do a slight mess up on the ropes. But he does 18 different rope maneuvers every single match. So the more you do, the higher the odds are of having a mistake. And even AJ Styles makes a mistake every now and then. He's not perfect in it.
Sure.
I just think sometimes the fans, they get defensive of their favorite product in an unnecessary way. Like the announcer said, this is what happens with high risk maneuvers. High risk, high reward, but it's still a risk. And it's like, okay, just leave it at that. Like, it was a risk. It's not like they botch every single time. It's not like they're constantly falling. It just happened. And Damien's was a fluke, and it could have been so much worse.
Right. Cargill's was like 3 in a row.
Correct. I'm just glad that Damien had that upward momentum when he went over. Had he fully slipped down and that caught right at the knee or anything, oh man.
And that just also kind of goes back to the fact that the difference between, Damien Priest, and then as we spoke earlier about Will Ospreay and, Ray Phoenix, where they had that little, was it a botch? Was it a recovery? What was it? It's a lot of it's about the recovery. And correct. Jade Cargill at this point does not have the mentality, the psychology of being able to recover when she screws up. When she does make a mistake, when there is something that's botched, she instantly feels like she has to jump up, and now all of a sudden she has to do something just as big, and sometimes that makes it look just as bad. Instead of, listen, you just jumped up and, face planted, pancaked yourself all over the mat in a tag match. At that point, forget the next spot for right now. Yeah. Let's focus on that. We can turn it back around and come back to that next one in a little bit. But right now, we need to focus on the fact that you screwed up, and in a real fight, that would not have happened. You wouldn't have jumped right back up.
Agreed. Each one of us has been in the ring, in a match. Each one of us has worked guys that were way more experienced. Each one of us has worked guys that were way less experienced. I am at no point in time saying that any one of us or all of us collectively have near as much ring time as we would need in order to be on television or on a PLE. However, we have seen, and you guys can attest to this firsthand, people that are green that start to believe their own hype, especially people that maybe are in really good fitness shape that start to buy in to what they're trying to sell. And they get in that go mode and the adrenaline's pumping and they slip. They start to make a mistake. They start to get embarrassed. And then all of a sudden, boom, they kick it to the next gear, trying to cover it up and hide it, which just puts more focus on it.
Yeah.
And it's not until you're in there enough times that you've made enough mistakes and had the veterans telling you, look, I see what you were doing there. Let's not do that. Instead, if you were to do this instead and maybe turn it this way, like a Damien did on that, assuming that was a slip and he is indeed fine and everything's all hunky-dory and he is the absolute perfection or professionalist or whatever the word I'm looking for is, then that's the cookie cutter of the example that you're going to be setting. And let's go that route instead of trying to just, now I fell down. Now I must knock everybody down. No. You fell down. Hold your leg. Hold your leg. Yeah. Hold your stomach. Hold your neck. Whatever it is that looks like it got hurt.
And we've all been in the ring and we've all messed up. I mean, I still remember one of my last matches for the Wrestling Hall of Fame in front of, Terry Funk and Harley Race and all those guys were there. And I'm wrestling Gage Octane, and I turn around and he had to do a leapfrog drop kick on me. And he goes to leapfrog, and me and my big old butt couldn't get down fast enough or get down low enough. And I stumbled going into the rope. But as soon as I stumbled, I fell into that second rope, and Gage, being the perfectionist that he is, instead of going right into that drop kick, he paused a split second long enough for me to get up, kick the rope, act like the rope just screwed me up, and I turned around and there was a kick right in my face. Yeah. And it flowed very well. And I mean, even Harley goes, "Good recovery, kid." It's just like, it was a fluke. I screwed up. We've all screwed up.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Harley.
Thank you, Mr. Race.
Yeah. I appreciated at least that Jade, the way she responded, it looked like she was at least trying to stick to the script. I've seen her mess up in the past, and she goes off script and just start throwing wild punches here and there and just lost. So that's where it's like, I appreciated that at least she tried to get back on script. I agree. Stay down, sell. Then give yourself time and let somebody that knows how to work on the fly figure out where to go from there. The little bit that it looked at least this time like she was on script, I was like, hey, there's a little bit of growth. But
Right. And at least they're smart enough to put that match on early so that if it does need to be adjusted for 5 minutes because of some mishap or whatnot, then they can readjust for the rest of the show, as far as that goes. For fans or even people that have never been in there, never felt the difference of the rings, never felt how springy or unspringy they are, which yeah, you got to hit them really hard to get some spring out of them.
Right.
I mean, they're not forgiving. It's airline cables wrapped in garden hose. You're not gonna like it until you get there.
Callous your back.
For them, oh my gosh! But for them to sit there and start laying blame on technical difficulties or poor equipment or whatnot, it's just that wasn't even worth it.
Unnecessary. Yeah, it was like, it is what it is. Just move on. Just enjoy the show.
It was a good show. Let it be.
Speaking of good show, I got to give props to the WWE production crew, because the way that they went with that camera angle when CM Punk comes sliding in,
that was great.
Oh,
tip of the hat to you guys.
Great.
How many times did they rehearse
it? Was the shoes.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the shoes, I wouldn't have known. But as soon as I saw the shoes, I was like, and there he is. It was so good. But even that, Logan didn't see it. I think he had to work. So when he got back from work, I showed it to him. And it wasn't until he's up and then you get Drew turning and looking at him, and there's that little bit of a face-off. That's when he's like, wait, is that Punk? It was just like, and then the camera flips. So he didn't even catch it with the shoes. But yeah, it was, hats off to those guys. That production crew, those camera operators, that was perfect.
And I am the ding dong that understands what this means in England, which is the same as just one finger.
Okay.
And so for Punk 1, 2,
okay,
against Drew, that was just an extra layer that the British fans are going to be like, oh, you dirty.
I didn't even catch that. That crowd, they hated it.
I've seen enough Ted Lasso and any other number of British shows to pick up on something.
Well, overall, Josh, you gave it a hacksaw. I'm going to say overall, I'm not giving it a hacksaw per se, but it is a strong Orange Cassidy. A strong Orange Cassidy overall, the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't know. We got 5 matches, and 3 of them I thought were really, really strong.
Really strong.
Really, really strong. I mean, if you were able to have that high of a percentage on an AEW show, so what, like 12 matches that were really awesome, then I mean, let's do the math. No, it's not. Yeah. But even then, I'll go with a hacksaw. Dustin, don't hurt yourself.
I ran out of fingers.
He's like, I don't have enough fingers. But yeah, I got to give it a hacksaw. Even if there was a large chunk that I was just like, yeah, I'm not sitting through this.
Yep.
But maybe it's because I didn't sit through it that I'm like, yeah, I'll go from a really strong Orange Cassidy to a hacksaw. Maybe that's why.
I enjoyed it,
and I'm just watching it without one match on it. I saw. There you go.
And I also got to give credit to the fans. The fans in Scotland, they make things so much fun.
Yeah.
I love the international crowds.
And can I say, the fans right now for wrestling are reminding me of the mid to late 80s. When they were like, the Silver Dome for WrestleMania and stuff like that, when the crowd was just so hot. The crowd today on WWE, on AEW, the crowds are just into it right now. Yeah. And I think that having competition breeds more fans, and it just breeds better show.
Yep.
Better performance.
Yeah. It's a kind of a new attitude era.
Yeah. Fun time to be a wrestling fan.
Man.
Agreed.
All right,
So,
cool. Well, let's wrap this thing up, and then come next week.
What's next?
Well, next week we're going to have to talk about Collision, because Dustin and I have not watched Collision, so we did not get to see
I have not either.
So I haven't watched Collision. I've only gotten half of it in, and I know, Corey, you were looking forward to the return of the House of Black, and I had seen that it was House of Black versus the Bang Bang Gang. I just knew that was it because they had announced it on Wednesday. Like, I was in the arena and they had talked about it.
Okay.
But I haven't seen it.
Spoilers.
So.
Okay.
I don't think it's a spoiler.
So, all right, we'll talk about it.
All right, we'll talk about it. All right, that's all we got.
When is the next PLA or PPV?
The next PPV should be Forbidden Door, and that's on the 30th.
Okay, so we got a few weeks.
Our next show is prediction, though, isn't it?
Yeah, the next show should be prediction show.
Yeah.
And we'll have I think 7 AEW shows between now and then.
And 17 matches on that card.
Right.
I will say, unfortunately, I am going to have to delay my watching of Forbidden Door because that happens to fall on my wife and I's, count my fingers and toes, that would be 23rd wedding anniversary. So we will not be doing it, the Forbidden Door on the 30th.
Yeah,
but
probably shouldn't do that. Yeah.
She not interested? It's not her thing.
I think she's seen enough wrestling and back stage wrestling antics to understand that that's the reason we're tired. I don't think she's into it. So
Shenanigans. She's seen enough shenanigans.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I don't know when we'll chat with you guys, but we'll see the fans here in about a week and a half.
Sounds good.
All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.